This presentation is entitled Strategies for Occupational Therapists, Part B. It is being delivered by Sean Lee, an occupational therapy student, as part of a series of lectures addressing psychological health and safety in the occupational therapy workplace. In the previous segment, Part A, my colleague outlined a range of strategies that an individual OT can use to maintain their psychological health. Consideration was paid to how these strategies interact with the unique stresses OTs are subject to, as well as the strengths that they possess. Similarly, Part B will examine 5 more strategies with this same focus. These strategies are undertaking self-care, building resiliency, saying no, knowing your rights as a worker, and the use of role models. We begin with self-care. When an occupational therapist engages in self-care, what he or she is doing is building her resilience. She is reducing the stress that she is experiencing and is improving the way that she perceives the work that she does. She is also increasing the personal satisfaction that she might gain from the work she does. These are the means by which self-care may prevent compassion fatigue and burnout. Several studies have looked empirically at the link between the concerted use of self-care activities and the psychological health of the therapist. This is research that has attempted to cross disciplines as well, and occupational therapists are not the only ones to benefit. However, at the end of the day, self-care is as much a mindset as it is a range of specific activities to be prescribed. In fact, every strategy I will be outlining in Part B, and perhaps those in Part A as well, can be considered acts of self-care. At the core of self-care, and thus all of these activities, is an attitude of mindfulness, and we should be adopting a mindful presence when we engage in these activities. That is, we should be fully conscious and aware in the present moment. This is what allows for reflection and can turn a potentially emotionally traumatic experience into one which is a learning opportunity, instead of one which detracts from our enjoyment of the profession. We are allowed to reflect in action, during our therapy, and on action, after the moment. An article in 2009 by Reed outlines a specific model to implementing mindfulness within occupational therapy practice. It consists of 4 parts. The first, taking stock and preparing, asks the occupational therapist to develop cultural competence and enter every engagement with the client with the intent to practice mindfully. In Part 2, active availability, we are asked to watch the moment unfold with an open attention. Reflectivity asks the therapist to ask themselves reflective questions and invite ambiguity in an open mind. We need, in this part, to question our internal dialogue, and we're looking out for any knee-jerk cognitive or emotional reactions that we may have towards our clients or ourselves. These knee-jerk reactions may be maladaptive, and it is at this stage that we can address these and circumvent poor psychological health. In Part 4, practice, we look bigger picture, where we observe ourselves and our new techniques and what we have learned over time. The hope here is that we increase the quality of our practice, increase the satisfaction with our practice, and prevent psychological decline. However, mindfulness, by definition, works outside of practice as well. In fact, it's anything that you do, whether it's completing an adult coloring relaxation book or seeking support emotionally from your family. What mindfulness allows a therapist to accomplish is to monitor the symptoms for compassion fatigue and burnout, to focus on the positive, redeeming aspects of our job, and to engage in spiritual self-care, a term which does not have to be tethered to religious practice. Here, the focus is on deriving meaning from our work, and we find meaning both within and outside of our profession. Now there is a holistic connection to what we are doing, and this keeps us going. ability to react to potentially stressing situations in a positive manner. And in this sense, the link to self-care is quite clear. However, this study by Ashby in 2013 outlines that there is a special relationship between professional resilience and our professional identity. We have to value our role as occupational therapists in interdisciplinary teams and management circles. And we do this by reflecting on theory. We can also do this by relying on role models, especially as young clinicians. We learn not just skills and not just coping mechanisms, but the importance of our role as OTs and how there are different ways for us to achieve this. We can also look towards other disciplines and try and identify ways in which OTs and other healthcare professionals can work best together. Finally, we must know when to say no and know our rights as workers. These address the stressful aspects of managing a long or difficult caseload and all the work demands that are associated with it. We are saying no not just to clients but to other professionals and to management. We must know personally what our limits are and when to take breaks. In conclusion, our strategies that we have outlined are not mutually exclusive. However, they do fit into a greater picture of how occupational therapists can deal with our psychological well-being. We must develop a mindful attitude, we must have confidence in our role as an occupational therapist, we must know our rights as workers, and we must focus on the positives to remind ourselves why we got into this profession in the first place.